Welcome to Shine the Way podcast. Today I'm joined by Jay Johnston, the head wrestling coach of the girls program at Basehor-Linwood High School. Coach Johnston has been married for 12 years to his wife Caitlin, and they have 2 children. He grew up in Leavenworth, Kansas, graduating in 1999, and was fortunate to compete under longtime head coach Dave Schmidt. In college, he hopped around until the semester at Fort Hays State, then went to Sterling for a year and a half just as a student. Then 1 year at Central Missouri State before he found his home at Missouri Valley College, where he was able to wrestle with his cousin. And in 2005, they were the national champs. Also, while at Missouri Valley, he got to wrestle under Hall of Fame coach Mike
Muckles.
So, welcome, Coach.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be with you, Jake, and just talk wrestling and coaching and leadership.
Well, I appreciate you bearing with me, and hopefully this records better than it's sounding on my end right now. But technology and I sometimes don't mesh real well, so
that's okay. Maybe it'll make me sound better.
So you grew up in Leavenworth and obviously wrestling. Along with wrestling, what other sports did you play?
So I have a unique journey in that I grew up with a single mom and didn't actually play a lot of sports. We didn't have a lot of money, and my mom wasn't an athlete growing up. So I played, I think, 1 year of rec soccer. I remember doing like 1 year of t-ball, 1 year of flag football. It was very hodgepodge. And so I really didn't grow up playing a lot of sports. I mean, I played in the neighborhood. I was always outside playing in the neighborhood and pick up games of all sorts. I like sports. I liked athletic things, but I really didn't have a background in it. On top of that, I was pretty tiny. I was a small kid. And so I didn't really play like much organized sports until I got to middle school. And, I played football weighing like 80 pounds as a 7th grader. And I tried basketball and all kinds of things. But I got into wrestling just out of sheer boredom. I remember just because in 7th grade, the PE teacher was the wrestling coach, and he had a unit at the beginning of the year. And I thought it was weird. And I actually did not participate. I was like, I don't want to do that stuff. So I just took a 0 to not wrestle. And, but then I was sitting at home and my mom's working. I'm, a single parent. I was just kind of by myself and I got bored. And so I was like, I'll try wrestling out. And it was the best decision I ever made. And it was one of the few things that was natural, and I could wrestle kids my size. And it just kind of took off from there. But actually, I didn't play a lot of sports growing up. I'm a fan of the NFL and I love sports, but I think just my upbringing, we just didn't have that many opportunities, and grew up pretty poor. And so, but I'm fortunate enough that I found my way to wrestling.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a good thing to know that wrestling was able to become an outlet for you and a passion for you. Leavenworth and Basehor, obviously now in the same conference, but they weren't when you grew up. How was it? You said a longtime coach, so he's probably had his ways. How was it having a pretty senior coach as a high schooler?
Yeah, I think for me, wrestling kind of became my dad and the mentors with it. Just having a single parent. My mom worked a lot. She was a waitress. And I was lucky. Coach Schmidt was a father-like figure to me and took me under his wing. And I had a lot of mentors that wrestling became my dad, that taught me hard work and work ethic and accountability and doing what you say you're going to do and how to become a man. And so I'm very grateful that I had a seasoned coach at that time. He had been a head coach for over a decade, but he really pushed us. Hard work, accountability, you had to show up. He was highly organized, and if you weren't there, you were going to hear from him. But also he believed in me a lot. And, a young man without a dad, it means when you have men that believe in you. And so I think that, I think he's one of the reasons that I went into coaching, was just because he was such a great mentor to me and my college coaches as well, that I think I wanted to do that for other people. I wanted to be that figure, as much as wrestling and the men in it transformed my life. I wanted to be able to do that for others.
Yeah. And so you found some success in high school, and ultimately that led you to Fort Hays. With your upbringing and having a single mom and finding the passion, what was it like to go clear across the state that first semester?
I wasn't ready. And actually, I'm young. Not only am I small, but I didn't turn 18 till my first day of college. So I was really young, 4 hours away, and I was just a young kid that was kind of lost. And those times you kind of wish you had a dad to maybe kick you in the butt a little bit. And so I had to kind of figure a lot of things out on my own. And so I did Fort Hays, and I wrestled out there, but I just felt kind of lost, and I didn't really. I was missing home, so I only went there a semester, and then I had some friends playing football at Sterling, and one of my best friends was down there playing football at Sterling, and so I just went there to be a student. I said, I'm just going to go here and be a student and kind of figure out life, and I really enjoyed it. I met lifelong friends. It was a great Sterling is a Christian school, and so helped continue to develop my faith. But that second year, my sophomore year, I started taking education class. I didn't plan on being a teacher, but a lot of my friends were doing it, so I was like, I'll take education classes. And then I was doing a practicum at Nickerson High School, and their coaches asked me to come in the room and help out, and that's where I really enjoyed it. I was helping out with kids, and I was like, man, this is awesome. And so at the end of that year, I decided to go back and wrestle, but not with the goal of being an All-American and not with the goal of I'm gonna be a starter or anything. But I knew the pathway was clear at that point. I really want to be a teacher. I really want to be a coach and impact the life of kids. And I just felt like wrestling in college would give me a better foundation and open more doors and give me more experiences to be the type of coach I wanted to. So that was my main reason of going back into coaching. And I went to Central Missouri, had a really good year there. I loved it, but my cousin had just graduated and he really wanted to go to Missouri Valley. And so family was important to me. And I was like, let's just go to college together. That'd be awesome. And we got to go to college together and wrestle together and met lifelong friends. And Coach Mockholtz is one of the greatest men I've ever been around. And I got a lot of my coaching from him, and he could get you to run through a brick wall. He was so motivational. And we actually won nationals in 2003, and I graduated in 2005. I was a very mediocre wrestler. I wasn't on the national team. I got to go and get beat up by the varsity stars, but it was the biggest blessing. And I still have lifelong friends there, and it shaped me a ton.
The decision at Sterling, one of the things I talk to my son about now is if you have interest in college, you should give it a shot right out of high school, because if you go to a K-State, you may not go back. Well, on this case, you kind of disproved that, but it wasn't necessarily for the sport itself. It was more from a learning perspective. Mm-hmm. You were still putting in the time, wrestling, but you were doing it so you could learn and become a coach like you are today. Where a lot of kids, when they go to play a sport in college, it's because it's about them and they want to get better, win a national championship, beat varsity, whatever it might be. When you made the decision to go to Central Missouri and then over to Missouri Valley, was it easier to put in the time, knowing that the ultimate goal is to be a teacher and a coach, than maybe what you were doing at Fort Hays?
Well, I think one thing about me is I've never been scared to change course. And I changed course a bunch of times, and I give that advice to kids. And when they go to college, I'm like, it's not a life sentence. You can change your mind at any time. Your future is yours, and it's your life. So don't wrestle because you want to make me proud or anyone. You need to wrestle. If you choose to wrestle, you need to wrestle for you or whatever school you go to. You can change course at any time. Life is long, and just keep working towards a goal and pivot when you need to. And so I pivoted often when I wasn't afraid to change goals or anything like that. But I will tell you that even though wrestling, I knew that was the goal. I want to be a coach and I want to learn. It still, like, a lot of my good friends became All-Americans, and that still stings a little bit as a competitor. It's like, oh man, I still wanted to be an All-American. I still wanted to be the guy. And so that's just the natural competitor. You don't turn that off. So it still hurts that like 3 or 4 of my best friends are on the wall and I'm not, but it I'm incredibly happy for them, and I wouldn't have changed anything. It has been an amazing experience, and I always knew why I was doing it. I mean, I wanted it would have been nice to have my cake and eat it too, and have the the bow on the top. But I'm very blessed with how it turned out. But there was still a lot of me that I still wanted successful things, even though I knew why that was there. But I do think it is hard for many kids because they're so used to I'm the guy, I'm the leader, I'm the captain, and now you go back to being nothing. That for me, that didn't hurt me as much when I was when I transferred the second time, because I knew I wasn't as upset. I didn't have an ego. I'm like, hey, I'm just here to work hard, get better, and learn. And so I do think that helped me not have, not get want to drop the sport or leave the sport just because I wasn't the starter.
So you graduate and become an assistant wrestling coach at Warsaw High School for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then you jump back to Leavenworth for 2 years. So starting at Warsaw, what was that year like as a first-year assistant coach?
I was just a young kid and didn't really know what was going on. And I had a little apartment to myself and, getting paychecks for the first time, learned how to manage money and still kind of broke. I went and saw my friends in college because they were only an hour away a lot. But I was probably not good at teaching, and I learned a lot of hard lessons. That first year of teaching is rough, and you really got to figure out, is this really what you want to do? But I learned a lot, and but I also I missed home, and I was a young guy, and I wanted to be back in the city. And my brother was still in high school, and so I wanted to be able to coach him. And so I was thankful that I was able to go back home and be an assistant coach for a couple of years under my high school coach that coached me, which was really cool to be his assistant. And I got to coach my brother his junior and senior year, which was an awesome, cool thing. And he ended up being a state placer his senior year, and that I got to coach him in those matches. And so that was a really cool thing. And so I just wanted to be home. I am kind of a homebody. And then after that, my head coach finally retired, and I became the head coach. After that, and I became a head coach at a very young age. I think I was 26 or so. I mean, I was very young at a 6A school at the time. And so I learned a lot of hard lessons being a very young coach in his mid-20s. But a lot of those lessons, as hard as they were then, that they've helped me down the road a lot. And so I'm thankful for the hardships, even though they're really hard at the time. So I was a head coach for almost a decade for boys.
Yeah, so you did that. But before we get into your head coaching thing, was there a dynamic with your brother that was difficult sometimes to treat him the same as this student over here? Because you know what he can do because he's your brother.
Yeah.
And I liken it to dads that coach their sons or daughters, and moms that coach, you know what your kid can do or your sibling can do. So how was that as a young person, only 2 years into the sport of coaching? How was that dynamic?
Well, my brother is different, and he's a pain in the butt. So, and my younger brother, and he makes you want to pull out your hair. So it was hard. And the head coach, I was a buffer between them because the head coach wanted to kill him all the time. And, but I always believed in him, and I pushed him, and I made him do work in the summer because I knew he had the ability. And what was really cool is he wasn't, he was an upper weight, he was a heavyweight, and he wasn't a naturally athletic kid. So he worked for everything he got. And I was really, really proud of him to get a state medal his senior year. And he had beaten guys that had just crushed him earlier on in his career. But like, I had to have my thumb on him all the time. And so it was a hard dynamic. And we still have that relationship. I don't know whether I want to hug him or punch him all the time, but it was one of the coolest blessings was being in his corner when he placed at state and knowing his journey. I wouldn't trade that for the world. And it was definitely a highlight of my coaching career that we got to live that experience together.
Was it different being not necessarily on the same level as your former high school head coach, but being right there as his right-hand man? Was that a different dynamic for you?
Yeah, it was. It was weird. The first couple of years were weird because I was still a young kid, but I'm teaching, but a lot of the teachers still remembered me as that kid. And I think, I still had a lot of growing up to do. And so it was weird. I mean, and he had pushed me in a lot of ways because I was young and single, and I needed to. I'm grateful for my wife. My wife is the biggest blessing in my life, and she has grounded me a lot. But I think for him, he was prepping me a lot to be a head coach. He put a lot of responsibility on, but he was also hard on me, and I was really grateful for it. And I think that I still became a head coach at a 6A school a little too young. If I had to do it all over again, I probably would have tried to go to a couple different programs and learn. I probably would have gone to, maybe go to Manhattan or somewhere else that was really good if I had to rewrite it all over again. But at the time, I thought I was ready. But I think that's one thing I would push young coaches is don't be in a rush to be a head coach, and go be in a great program that is different than yours, and just go learn, and don't be afraid to not be the guy. So I think I was a head coach a little bit before I was ready, but at the time, the lessons I learned are paying such huge dividends now. So I am grateful that I got that head coaching job because it is now in my 40s. It's the biggest blessing. Like the mistakes I made are huge now and monumental.
So we transitioned from being the head wrestling coach at Leavenworth over to Basehor-Linwood to be an assistant for 1 year. And then in 2018, you jumped into the arena of high school girls wrestling as the head coach at Basehor. While still doing the other side, we got the youth programs in the middle school. Very busy man in the wrestling arena. What was it about the opportunity to become a head coach of the girls program that intrigued you?
Yeah, well, I got married, and then we found out we were going to have our first child, and that was really big to me growing up without a dad. And so I actually got out of coaching for 2 years because I just wanted to be a husband and dad, and I wanted to do fatherhood right. I still consider it the biggest job I have, and so I was just worried that I was going to mess up being a dad. I was scared to death. And so I got out of coaching, and I was just a teacher and a dad for 2 years. And then after that, I figured out, I was like, I think I can do the dad thing and the wrestling thing. But I told my wife, I'm never going to be a head coach again. You don't have to worry about that. I'm not going to be a head coach. That's too much responsibility. So I just began searching for assistant jobs. And an assistant job opened up at Basehor-Linwood with Jason Puderbaugh, but I kept my teaching job in Leavenworth. So that was the plan. I was going to stay teaching in Leavenworth, but go coach there. But they had a social studies job, and so I love my teaching job, and my goal really wasn't to leave Leavenworth, but I don't know, something just told me this was the right move, and so I took the social studies job at Basehor, and I took the assistant job, and I left a job that I loved, and it has been, and again, taking these risks, it just, I don't know, it's a gut feeling like this is the right thing to do. And the risks that I've taken along the way have just always paid off. I don't know why, but, and I moved to Basehor, and instantly I fell in love with the community, the schools, and being from Leavenworth, I didn't really know, I don't think I'd ever been in Basehor. As a high schooler, they were 4A and I was 6A, and I never interacted with it. And it's been the biggest blessing. So I was an assistant under Puderbaugh, but I went to a clinic that year, and the McPherson coach at the time, Doug Kretzer, gave a really impassioned speech about women's wrestling. And I'd already been an assistant, I think, for a year. And I'd had experience because Missouri Valley College had a women's program. And so they became a lot of our friends, and that exposed me to women's wrestling for the first time. So I knew how legitimate and real women's wrestling was. When Kretzer spoke about it, it just stirred something in me. And so I said, hey, I talked to Bootball, hey, what do you think about me just coaching a few girls? It'll be like in the morning, so it won't conflict, and try to start a girls program. Because I knew a few girls had done maybe a little bit of middle school or something. And he said, sure. So we sent out a feeler, and I talked to AD, and it was very much, I just got paid like $10 an hour or something. I wasn't even a coach, but we ended up having like 8 girls that first year and practicing. So practicing at 5:30 in the morning, then doing the men's practice after school, and then coaching at both. It was wild. And I don't know how I did it, but I had a great assistant who's still an assistant named Michelle Vielhauer, and she was amazing. And, but then that next year, it ended up being amazing. And that next year, the numbers doubled to 16. And that was the year I think they sanctioned women's wrestling as a sport. And so I was still an assistant that second year, but doing the strain of all of that. Then came the COVID year in 2020, and we couldn't practice together, and it created problems there. And so that's when I told Jason, I think we need to split, and I think I just need to be the head coach at girls, because then we were at the numbers in the 20s, and just became I was serving 2 masters, and I wasn't good at either of them. And so that's when we officially split the program, and I dedicated all my time starting in 2020. And that was the year we started the middle school program. That's when we started the youth just for girls program. And then we took off, and now we're here today.
Well, that's a wonderful story, because through hardships and different things, I've also found that to be the best father and everything, you have to be doing something you're passionate about as well. So you are still who you are, and you're a wrestling coach. You're a dad and a husband, but you're also a wrestling coach. Without those 3, it's hard to be the other 2. Mm-hmm. Which, looking through here, I didn't mention all these in your bio, but you're active board member on the KWCA. These last 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, you've been the president of that, still coaching. You guys won the state championship.
Yeah.
And I believe the boys did as well.
Yes, they did.
That's a heck of a year, let alone the whole
Title Town, baby.
That's a really cool thing. So what is it that makes you coach? Like, why do you do
this? I think one is I really want to have a positive impact on the life of youth. And I think that's been my mission. I figured out a lot of life is like figuring out, why are you on this earth? And I think that was what I was put on the earth to do. I really believe I was put here to positively impact the lives of kids, and to get them to do 3 things: love themselves, believe themselves, and become better leaders. And that's my mission. That's why I wrestle. I don't wrestle. I don't coach for medals or trophies or anything like that. I really found out, like, when I discovered that, it changed me as a person, it changed me as a human. Like, why am I here and why do I do this? And it's to positively impact the life of kids and get them to love themselves, believe themselves, and become better leaders. And that's transformational. And it is, once you discover that, it gives you, well, why are we doing this drill? What's the goal of this season? It gives you the why behind everything you do. It's the lens in which you create practices and structures and camps, and any opportunity, any gathering is through that lens. And so when you figure out, like, I think early on in my career, I made the mistake of, I wanted to win. And that was why I was coaching. I was coaching to win, and we're going to win. And I was not a good coach. And it took me a while to figure it out, like, why are you doing this? When I discovered that, I reframed my focus on the relationships with kids and the why. And winning isn't important, and it's not something we ever even talk about. It's transformed my life, and it's transformed my coaching, and it's given me purpose. And now any activity I do, anything I do is through that lens. Is this meeting the goal of building relationships with kids and helping them love themselves, believe themselves, and become better leaders?
I love everything about what you just said. We can always get caught up in the win loss column. And as parents, it's very easy to get caught up in the win loss column, specifically related to our children. But there's got to be something. And at the end of the day, one of my guests, Ryan at DeSoto, tells his girls that one day the ball's going to stop bouncing. You may still play a rec ball or whatever, but at some point it's going to be over. And you got to have more and know who you are outside of the sport. And so what you just said there, right? It's transformation. There's a higher call, a reason for it. Having coached girls, do you teach it the same way or as technical side of things? And then emotionally and personality wise, how different is coaching boys versus
coaching boys and girls is different. It's wildly different, but the same. And the best way I can put it is the reason one of the reasons I love coaching girls better is they see the journey much more clearly and they value the journey much more. They value growing as a person. They value more the growth, and they don't, the wins and losses they take hard, but I think that they enjoy the growth in the non-wrestling aspects a lot more. And so that's been really enjoyable. I think the hard thing is just to get them to be, with boys, it's harder to get them to be naturally more physical and aggressive. And so if you can get girls to do that, you're on your way as a coach. Like just getting girls to be physical and aggressive is a challenge. And it happens in different ways and in different styles and matches. But technically not a whole lot. I think boys can chain wrestle a little bit better. Like with boys, I can run them through a series where they're doing a shot to defense, to a turn, to a scramble, and one guy comes out and it's naturally like faster twitch to where they can chain stuff together, and girls aren't that way. But I will say that for me and my experience, girls are more sponges of knowledge. And that's been a joy. Like, everything I do, I tell them, well, why are we doing this? I think any athlete wants to know what's the purpose behind this. And so I always explain anything we do. I want to explain the purpose behind it, but girls are just sponges. They soak everything up. They want to learn. They want to get better. And sometimes with boys, they just wanted to beat each other up that day. And I think with girls, I've really enjoyed that they just love learning. But technically, no, I don't treat them any different. I think in the early years, I did treat them different, and I treated them more with kid gloves. And now I don't. I am just as hard on them as I was my boys team 10 years ago. And it took me a while to get there, but that's what they need. So I am not any less. I am just as demanding. I am just as I am very honest when they're not doing the things they need to do. I push them just as hard. And the girls, they wanted to be, girls don't want to be treated like girls. They don't want to be treated like you think that they're soft or frail. They want to be coached. And they want high expectations. And so I think I was doing a disservice in the earlier years by being a little too easy. But they want to be coached up, and they want any athlete, they may not like it at the time, but they want to be in a program that demands a lot out of them and has high expectations. They want that. And so I'm not really any different than I would be with boys. No, I treat them just the same. Technically, a little bit. There are some things that you do differently with girls. Like as an example, I think there's a wrestling move called a tilt. And basically it's a move where you put someone on their back and you score a lot of points. Girls struggle with that. And I don't know, I've been trying to wrap my head, is it a core strength thing, just that core strength? But they have a hard time really holding someone in place in a tilt position. So that's an example. We don't do a lot of tilts. I tried a few years ago and it did not go well. And I kept trying. I'm like, I'm wasting my time here. So that's an example. But on the boys side of things, you have to have a tilt to be successful on the boys side of things. So that's the best example I could give you.
Well, that's good, because obviously we're different. You mentioned the boys got the quick twitch muscle more than maybe some of the young lady wrestlers. But at the end of the day, the core principles.
Yeah, it's all wrestling, and the girls have been in practice with boys are too. And I'm not saying that there aren't girls that can't scramble and move at a high level. I'm just saying that it's a smaller percentage on your team. You might have 2 or 3% that can like scramble like that, whereas boys, it's everyone has to be doing it. And so that's some of the differences I've seen.
So you started 20 years ago, 21 years ago as a wrestling coach.
Mm-hmm.
How is Coach Johnston different today, 20 years ago?
I'm wildly different. I'm wildly different than I was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I think you have to be learning and evolving, and I am a much different coach than I was even a few years ago. I think the biggest there's lots of things that are different. Like I wish I could. I think I've learned how to work smarter, not harder. I spent time doing all of these kind of weird fundraisers. I spent way too much time doing that. I think I spent too much time doing non-wrestling things like working out in practice and all this stuff. And now we just wrestle. They strength train with our trainer. We have a great weightlifting coach. We have a great program. And now we just wrestle. It is all wrestling, all business. I think I'm better able to connect to athletes and parents. Some of the biggest things of me is, one of the biggest transformational things that I learned was, as an early coach, a kid would be lazy or something and not be doing things the right way repeatedly, or they'd be messing up in some area. And after practice, I'd go with the assistant coach. Could you believe Johnny? Johnny was so lazy today. Man, he's lazy. Or I would just make a joke about him being lazy or something like that. I would turn it into a joke when I saw him. I would never do that now. Now, if you are not meeting the standard, you're getting a very direct conversation from me right away. The standard you walk past is the standard you accept. And so that's a big difference for me, is I am much more confrontational, but in the most positive way. And I don't demean them. I'm not yelling at them. I'm not a yeller. But if you're not up to standard, we are talking about it immediately. Like, hey, what's going on today? I can tell something's kind of not right. You're kind of not at your own pace. What's going on? And so that's one of the biggest differences, is everyone's held to the standard. And if you're falling short in some way, whether it's heart, effort, add to your team, I'm talking to you. And you should be worried if I'm not talking to you. And so I think that's a trait in all successful programs, is there's a high standard of excellence. And for me, we have a high standard of excellence. And so I will talk to you if you're falling short in some way, but I'm not yelling at you. It's more of me figuring out, hey, what's going on today? And sometimes it is something serious, hey, I was up all night, my cat died last night, or a family member. And sometimes there's some serious things. And then it's like, hey, do you need today off? Do you need to call mom? Do you need to go talk? Cause I have some great coaches that are phenomenal counselors. Do you need to talk to Coach Vielhauer, to Coach Knapp, and have a minute, cause there's some serious life stuff that is way more important than wrestling. Go take care of those things. And I've let kids go home because something really serious is going on. It's like, that stuff's more important than wrestling, and that's okay. But if there's nothing going on, then you need to get up to standard. And I let them know I have days where I didn't get enough sleep and all those things. I have 2 young kids, but, and so if your heart, attitude, effort, something's off, I am talking to you about it. And so that's a big difference for me, but I'm talking to you out of love, if that makes sense, not out of, I'm not the general barking orders. I'm like, out of love, let's talk about what's going on right now. So that's a huge difference from me than 10, 15 years ago.
I like hearing that because you're taking the personable approach. Like you have a standard. If they're not meeting it, they typically do. Let's figure out why.
Mhm.
And one of my previous guests talked about there's life going on around us. But when we're in here, I need you locked in for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it could be. And if it can't be, we need to figure out why and deal with that. And I like that you're teaching them that there's a problem. We don't run from it. We don't try to hide it. Let's deal with it. Everybody in this world has problems. And the sooner we can deal with them, and the fact that you're able to come through with love and compassion is a big thing in today's environment. Really, any environment. It would have worked 10 years ago. May have been looked at a little different to a lot of people, but it would have worked. And so I do kudos to you for that, because being able to change over the course of 20 years, not only a good coach, but a good man, because you didn't say, I was successful doing it this way.
Yeah.
Things change.
And I've learned from a lot of coaches. There's so many coaches in this state that I begged, borrowed, and stolen from. But I also do a lot less. When I was a young coach, I showed every move. We worked on everything, and I've learned that then you become a master of nothing. So we are hyper focused. We're going to do a few things extremely well, and we're going to do them really. And it might change from one year to another, but it's not going to change from one day to the next or 1 week to the next. And we are going to be hyper focused on a few things that we're going to be incredible at. And I think I was too grab bag when I was younger, and I didn't have a philosophy or identity. But now we are hyper focused, and it'll change from year to year. Like next year, we will focus on a few key things differently so that they're getting more well-rounded, but it will be hyper focused on just a few things. And I think that's helped me out a lot. I've changed, my practice structure and things that we work on. I've changed how much live I've done. I used to wrestle live as combative wrestling. And I do that 5 days a week. We're doing an hour go today, guys. We're going to wrestle live for an hour. And I thought that was toughness. I thought that's how you guys made people tough. And that's not how you make people tough. That's how you grind down your athletes and get them injured, and also make inferior wrestlers quit. And I don't think I've learned, actually John Smith, I went to a clinic with John Smith, who's a legendary coach. And he talked about, well, like when he wants his athletes to get in shape, he'll drill. And that's what I do now, because when you just wrestle live all the time, the better wrestler is just going to dominate, and then they can just coast and they don't have to work as hard. But you can't hide from drilling. Like if we're drilling takedowns to a turn or something for 20 minutes, the better wrestler can't hide. They have to keep going. And so we drill a lot more than we do live. We still wrestle live, but nowhere near what I did 20 years ago.
Well, I want to get to the quick hitters.
Yeah.
My first one, you've been around the wrestling arena here in Canada for a long time, both boys and girls. Give me a few of your favorite Kansas wrestlers you've seen throughout the years. Basehor-Linwood, outside of that as well.
Well, I mean, the best that I've ever seen, for me, I was a 90s guy. And so that was Bo Maines and Zach Roberson. Zach Roberson, and I know some of the older guys would say, oh, Melvin Douglas or, other guys back then, but I wasn't alive then. And I saw Zach Roberson, and he was an undefeated 4-time state champ. I think he took first or second NHSCA Nationals, Senior Nationals, which was the hardest nationals at that time in 1999. He went on to become an NCAA champ. And so I think he's one of, or if not the best. Bo Maines, of course, is a legend too. And that was all in my window, those two guys. Zach Roberson graduated the same year as me. So those were some of the best that I ever got to see. I was blessed to go to high school with Sean Bunch, and he ended up being a 2-time state champion and an All-American national finalist at Edinburgh, and he was amazing. Still one of the fastest humans I've ever seen wrestle. But on the girls' end, Well, I also at Leavenworth, I got to coach one of the best wrestlers of all time, Nathan Butler, who ended up being a three-time state champ and a 3 or 4 year starter for Stanford, and he was incredible. And he's probably the best I've ever coached. Um, just from a great family, and his dad still is the club coach in Leavenworth today. Um, but on the girls, I think the best I ever saw was Sage Rosario from Manhattan. She was incredible. She would have been a 4 time state champ, but her senior year, I think she was training MMA and just went to go train MMA. She was phenomenal, just a phenomenal athlete. She was like a gold gloves boxer, and she was just power, movement, agility, technique. She was everything, and she would have been a 4 timer. I think Kylie Dillow, who just graduated this year out of Chanute, is one of the best. I mean, she is phenomenal. On the national stage, she's an All-American. She's a 3 time state champ. I don't think she lost a match her last 2 years. So Kylie Dillow is also one of the best I've ever seen.
Who were some of the best you had to wrestle against? Did you wrestle either Zach Rose or Bo?
No, I didn't. I was always at different weight classes. So I don't have a story of them mauling me. I was a different. I think one year I think my sophomore year, I was in the same weight class as Bo or Zach, but I wasn't good enough to make it to the finals or anything like that at that point.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know the best I ever wrestled. I do remember I wrestled a guy named Matt Bean out of Oklahoma when I was in college, and I saw I was going to wrestle Matt Bean from Oklahoma, and at the time he was like a legendary high school wrestler, um, and I was like, I think that's him right there, and I was warming up, and he was eating a Subway sandwich. I was like, mate, no, that's not him, because no one's going to be eating a Subway sandwich like before they wrestle. I was like, so that's not him, I guess. And they call us, and he puts a sandwich down and then comes on the mat and just gives me the most vicious beating, and then stops halfway through the second period and goes and throws up in the trash can the Subway sandwich, and then commences to continue beating me, and then afterwards goes and sits down and eats the rest of the sandwich. And that was a really humbling moment in my college career.
Yeah, that's not many people are going to have a story like that, because I can't imagine eating a Subway sandwich right before I do any sport, let alone wrestling. But let's move to the college ranks. You wrestled in college, so you've obviously installed a good one there. But who are some of the all-time college wrestlers you enjoy?
I mean, I'm a Jordan Burroughs fan all the way. Jordan Burroughs is, I think, the GOAT to me. And not only just what he did on the mat, but the way he lives his life, how he's just such a great leader, dad, father, complete humility. He's just done everything the right way. And so for me, he's kind of my GOAT that I've always loved. I did love watching David Taylor, who's now at OSU, the head coach, and Kyle Dake. They were fun to watch. When I was younger, I liked Kendall Cross. He was an Olympian that wrestled just really like he wrestled the way I wish I could have. I was much more reserved defensive wrestler, but Kendall Cross would get like underhooks and overhooks and just toss you like in the Olympic final. And he wrestled the way I always wished I would, because I was such a conservative wrestler back then. But at the collegiate level, Penn State's been the most dominant team for over a decade. Oklahoma State, I think, is building something special, and they might get them in the next 2 or 3 years. I think Jordan Burroughs has been the person that I have just always loved watching as a coach, and he still does just incredible videos now about life and coaching and resilience.
So did I hear that Penn State's the best program?
Yeah. They are. I think for women, they didn't win it this year, but Iowa is probably the best right now. Women's college wrestling at the D1 level is still growing. I think Iowa's still the best because just at the consistency over the last couple years, even though they didn't win it this year, I think Iowa right now is still the marquee team, but it's much closer in the women's division than it is in the men's.
Were you there when Jared Furman was the principal?
Yes, I was. Yeah, Jared Furman hired me.
Okay, so I know him and Ross. I don't even know how to say his last name, but he's the big
Ross
Frank
Suizo.
guy. So,
Yep.
yeah. If you and Ross or you and Jared wrestled, who wins? You beat them both?
I would whoop Jared. And Jared's an amazing guy. He was the principal here the first few years, and I love him to death. He's just a great human being. I would whoop Jared though. Ross, I don't. That he would probably crush me. That's a big dude. So
Yeah.
I would probably not want to mess with Ross. And I'm not in as great a shape as I once was, and Ross is still kind of jacked. So he would probably crush me. I would have to get in close and then grab an ankle and bite it or something. I don't know. He's
pretty strong.
Yeah.
Man. If you get in close, he gets his hands on
Yeah. So I don't think I could take Ross.
Well, Coach Johnston, I appreciate you coming on here, and I love what I saw out of your girls program and culminating in the state championship, but just what I've heard today about your perspective on coaching. It's been refreshing. And while I'm a DeSoto guy, I do know a number of basic people that I think are pretty good people and fall into that category. And I wish you nothing but the best and continued success, except for against DeSoto.
Yeah. I have a very healthy respect for DeSoto. Coach Vieira is amazing, and he's done incredible things with that program. And so they build more momentum every year, and he's as dedicated as they come. He lives and breathes it. And also his wife was she taught both my children, and she's amazing. So both my children had Ms. Vieira as a teacher as well.
I'm just making my way through UKC. I got Shawnee Heights' coach coming up here soon, Coach Parks. Yeah, Parks. And I'm pretty excited about that one. And hopefully Coach Pooterball hearing this and he's willing to jump on. I'd love to talk to him as well because I watched his voice program this year at Regionals. And the success he's had is second to none.
Yeah, I will say, so you had one question on here that was like, how do you handle setbacks or losing streaks? And I will say one thing that we do is that I think if you're trying to handle adversity after the fact, you're not doing it right. And so I think for me, we embrace losing. I tell them all the time, like, we are here to lose. You're here to get your butt kicked. And so if it's expected of them, they just know. I think for me, we run head first into losing. We embrace it. I tell them metaphorically, like, hey, I want you to get punched in the mouth today. You guys need to get your butt kicked. It's good for you. It's healthy for you. That's how we're going to get better. And so for us, I think we don't have to handle setbacks or losing streaks because I tell them I want it to happen. You need to take losses, and we're here to get our butt kicked. And I think that's the best thing for you. And so I think those are things like, so when they lose or something, like, that's what we came here to do, girls. You're going to be there. You're going to be fine. And I think big matches too. I don't play up big matches. We just wrestle. I don't do anything special for state. I don't do anything visualization or anything like that. We just kept it. It was a normal week. It was a normal tournament. And I think that also has helped us. Like, we're just wrestling. And so I've never done anything different for state than I did for any other tournament. And I think also for us, we don't talk about medals. I had two girls that won state this year. During their career, we never once talked about winning state. I never talked about winning a state title as a team. We don't talk about medals. I've never talked about any one kid or our goal is to take third place. Our goal is to win. Our goal, you can be champion. Results are never uttered in our room. It is, what are we doing today to be our best? Are we wrestling with heart? Are we giving full effort? Do we have a good attitude? Are you supporting your team? And I think that's really helped us, is like, the results don't matter. It's, did we do those four things right? Then we're going to be okay.
Yeah. You're focusing on the process.
Yeah.
And the outcome will be what it is. based on their process. And that's good for girls, boys, adults, kids, everybody understands. It's about the process. Enjoy the day and do your best every day.
Yeah. Jake, it was great talking to you, man.
You too. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.